think I exceeded my time limit on LinkedIn. We'll see. Welcome back, Mr. Hudson. I believe this is our second meeting with one another.
Yes, it is.
The first time we met, you were still finishing up your book, self-published, Make Your Life Worth It. I've recently purchased it. I haven't read through it, but I have. I definitely love the pictures. I'm a picture person. I love the pictures. And so we'll have an opportunity to talk about that in a couple of moments here. I was riffing into a conversation with you, and I think I want to start from that angle there. You know, in this space here, I like to think that we could talk civilly and exploratory about politics and religion, which a lot of people like to stray away from because maybe it ruins their image or it ruins, but I think that everybody should be able to talk in a healthy way about politics, religion. I mean, anything. There should be a certain level of civil discourse that should take place that doesn't allow us to become emotionally triggered every time we talk about something that might be uncomfortable. Me being a therapist, this is, I would like to think I have a little bit of a mastery in this space here, but I describe myself as a Black libertarian and a capitalist. I'm unashamedly a believer in Jesus Christ. There are certain things about me that very, very hard points. Black libertarian, I believe everybody should have an opinion. There should be diverse opinion, and we should all seek towards exploratory growth. But everybody's entitled to their initial position. I believe I'm a capitalist. I believe in social competition. I believe in competition, business competition. I believe in social competition. And I believe in Jesus Christ, which means I sometimes lean more conservative on my belief system because a lot of conservative ideology sometimes lines up with the Bible. Sometimes, not all the time. What's your position in politics? You come across as a Republican.
Well,
to shoot sharp. To shoot sharp.
I am. Yeah. You know what? I decided a long time ago, back in 1972, when I was a senior. Jimmy Carter was running for president in that era. Kind of was getting time when I was getting to be voting age, and like most young people, I pulled the lever for Jimmy Carter. At the end of that first term, as I began to study and learn and grow, I understood what the dynamics of politics was all about. And then I had to make a decision. Which direction did I want to go? If I was factual, I don't like either party.
Okay.
I think both have gone off the rails. I registered Republican as a protest registration more than anything else. Okay. I'm very conservative. The reason I register Republican is because I believe deep down in data and history will prove it. The Democratic Party has done nothing good for the Black folks in this country.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay. So you said you registered Republican as a protest.
Yes.
Protest what?
Well, because 98 or 99% of African Americans in this country are Democrats.
Yeah. So you believe there's enemies on both sides, but you lean more towards Republicans as a protest because you believe Democrats have done nothing for the Black Party.
Exactly. Harm. They've done more harm than good.
More harm than good. And you say that that's based off of facts.
Yes, sir.
And obviously, that makes you that puts you on the dark side for a lot of Black folks.
Yes, it does. It eliminates me from a lot of social functions because I'm not invited.
I was seeing this meme online talking about this lady, probably more of a feminist presentation, talk about how women are now divorcing men based off of their political. White women are
Yes.
divorcing white men based off of their political positioning.
Yeah.
um,
It's rather wild out there because there's one side, I believe, that's
mhm,
willing to sit down and listen.
mhm.
There's another side that refuses to listen. They basically use emotion. Most of their processes are based on emotion rather than the facts. And if we looked at the facts and take the emotion out of it, it's clear that most African Americans are definitely more conservative than they are liberal.
Mm.
But yet and still, they vote the liberal ticket, and I don't know why. Well, I have some ideas, but they're just my perspectives. Not we
I
don't
have a
know for sure.
I have a legit explanation for it. That's on both ends. I think everybody's playing the game of the lesser of the two evils, based off of
Well,
what matters, not based off of complex thought, but based off of some core things that matter to them the most. And then there's this fear that things are going to go too far left or too far right ideology, right?
but in America, in America, the thing about our political system is that to for one group to just be dominated by one side of the political spectrum does not make sense. There has to be some equity in the voting booth in order for people to actually take advantage of the political system. If the only thing you do is vote one way, the other half ignores you. And so when
Yeah,
they get into power, you lose power. But if you have a 50-50, 70-30, 60-40, then the other side, both sides have to give or cater to what your political needs are. But if you're only on one side, only one side cares. You're ignoring 50% of the country,
yeah.
and that's not good.
But there's an obvious benefit when you vote one party or another, vote one way or another, right? Whereas you hope that the policies skew in your direction for the most part as it relates to what matters to you the most. The core value, going back to those core values and beliefs or core emotional points that every human being bases their decision making off of. By the way. The signal chopped up a little bit.
I'm back. You're not. There you go.
Okay. Signal's a little bit choppy, but yeah, obviously it's not balanced because otherwise why vote if we think that things are going to be balanced? People want things skewed one way or the other, leaning towards one particular, certain pivotal points, usually around women's rights, LGBTQ concerns. I would say black needs on the last list. We can all agree that on either side there, the needs of the black community are not exactly at the top of the totem pole when it comes to politics.
Well,
But
see, here's the thing about the black community, and I say that with every bit of my heart. We bundle it into just one group, and we're not one group. Blacks in California are different than blacks in Mississippi, and they have different needs and different wants. Same as New York and Texas, and same as dude, and we want to throw all of us in this group and say, oh, we're all this. No, we're not, and that's one of the problems that we have in this country is that we just want to say, oh, okay, you're black, and so you're all the same, and that's not true.
okay, you don't think that? Well, I believe the same thing with white folks, and I think the same with Asian folks, depending on where you live at. That culture, that who you are is based off the culture that you are bred into, and not necessarily the skin color.
Your economic position in society, your educational background, the area in which you lived in, your environment plays a huge role in how you think. But they want to make black folks all think alike. They want to make us all think alike, and the way we vote kind of says we do.
there's a context of you where not necessarily there's a context of not under the notion that we're all alike, but that there's something to be unified on that affects all of us because of how the system is wired to divide things based off of race. It has impacted us historically. So there's this unified front of diverse opinions. Some people do skew on around that framework of we are all alike, but there's others that understand that unity is not about us being all alike. Unity is
We
about
are
being
not we
diverse.
are not unified in anything else but politics. We vote 98% Democrat. But you
I
open
think,
up a black grocery store in the neighborhood,
yeah,
and 100% of the black people don't vote there. 98% of the people won't shop there.
I agree. I agree.
And so we're not unified. You open up a black bank, and 98% of the black people in the community don't use the bank.
But
You
is
open up
there
a black car dealership, and 98% of the black people don't use that car dealership.
right?
So
But
when you say the only thing we're unified on is politics.
is there? But that's under the context that there are issues that affect us overall, no matter how different we are. Let's say we're just targeting the black community. I mean, same thing for white community. But no matter how, but as human beings that function under a certain race category, there are certain things that impact African Americans as a unified culture that are different that differently impact white culture or Asian culture or Hispanic culture, right?
I don't know. You have to explain. You
Like,
have to break that one down for me.
um, like, I don't know. We could use a generic category would be racism in general, right? Like, I would imagine that black folks, Hispanic folks, Asian folks, categorically probably receive more racism than white folks. In theory.
Well, in theory, you could be correct, but you could be right. I'm not going to argue that point. I mean, racism exists. All right.
So that's something that So that's something we're unified on. Is my point though.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? It's like we're unified against racism that impacts
all right.
more ethnic
So
communities than it does predominantly white communities.
In what when you say racism affects different communities in different ways, then it has to be able to impact your goals, where you want to go, what you want to do, and how you want
to. Yeah, the feed froze again.
Today, I'm still here.
Yeah, you came back.
In America today.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Your racism does not stop you from going where you want to go or doing what you want to do.
I agree.
You might have some old, hillbilly redneck that still believes the beliefs of the past, but they don't affect today's world. They're not important because the laws have been changed, the barriers have been taken down, and the only thing that's preventing you from gaining your American dream, your African American dream, your Asian American dream, your Hispanic American dream is your willingness to put forth the effort to make it happen.
I agree. If I'm talking, I think we had this conversation in the last time we talked. I'm gonna 100% agree with you from a certain angle. Like if I'm talking to a kid one-on-one, I'm mentoring a kid one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And he's complaining to me about all this, how the white man is pushing him down and how he can't get no opportunity out of here. I'm gonna sound like a strong conservative on that front there. I'm gonna be like, look, pull yourself by your bootstraps. If one opportunity is not presented to yourself, find another opportunity. We live in a global society where you have access to people across the globe by having access to the internet, and everybody, I would argue, has access to the internet, and that obliterates the economic divide right there. So, I 100% agree with you on that. Go ahead.
I went on a ride along. I don't know if I told you this story, but one of the things that really pushed me to write the book. Just got under my skin. I went on a ride along with the Des Moines Police Department in 2013, and we were out doing our thing that night, and we had a shooting, we had this, we had some other things, and then we had a murder. We went to the scene, and there was a bunch of kids there that had ran away and scattered, and so they sent the police to see if they couldn't find somebody that was a witness. So we ran around the neighborhood. There was a kid running across the lawn. Police officer put the light on, stopped him, put him in the backseat of the unit. And we're sitting there. We go back to the scene of the crime. Police officer gets out of the car, leaves me and the young man in the car. And so we strike up a conversation. I ask him what he's doing. I ask him about his life a little bit. He was a high school kid. I said, so what's your future like? He said, I don't have one. I said, what do you mean I don't have one? He said, well, the man won't let me succeed. And he said, it doesn't matter anyway. I'll probably be dead by the time I'm 22.
Yeah.
Now, this is Des Moines, Iowa. This is as close to no crime, no barrier area that you can even find. But yet and still, this kid who has every opportunity in the world to be successful or president of the United States or an astronaut or a doctor or lawyer, thinks he'll be dead by the time he's 22. Thinks that because of racism and the man, he didn't have a chance. It rocked me to my core to hear this young man, because if he said it, others believe it. And so they go into the street, and that meant if he thinks he's going to be dead by the time he's 22, and he was 17 at the time, think of the mayhem, the devastation that he can do before his noted death age. That's 5 years of robbery, rape, even murder if he wanted to, because he thinks he's dead anyway.
Right.
And that's dangerous and these kids aren't getting that message, or should I say this? Where are they getting this message from? Where's this message coming from that you don't have a chance, that you can't make it, that somebody's going to bar you? So I wrote the book because I wanted to say, look, I grew up during a time, literally, when you didn't own your own life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in 1950 America, where I grew up, where I was born, a black man could be killed and the white man would not be charged.
Mm-hmm.
It happened all the way up into the 60s in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia. We know those cases.
Right.
And yet and still, the men in my hometown went to work every day. The men in my hometown raised their families. The men in my hometown and the women in my hometown said, you say yes, sir, and no, sir. You don't go out of the house without your hair combed. You're going to go out of the house. You're going to look nice. You're going to dress right. You're going to go to school. You're going to present yourself where you respect this family. And if you respect this family, you respect yourself.
Yeah.
We can't control right now what the law is, what the system says it is. And as I encountered people around my hometown, it wasn't the majority of the people who, oh, you can't drink from that water fountain, you can't go into that door. They were just as much confused with the Jim Crow laws as we were. The normal, everyday people that I dealt with, the ranchers, the business people, the people I went to school with. But it was illegal. People in Washington, D.C. or in Oklahoma City who made the rules. These few people that we elect to run our nation, they make these rules that are sometimes confusing to just the common man. And so sooner or later, those rules that are confusing to the people are changed. And so they changed the law. Once the law was changed, if you go back from 1940 to 1960, Larry, the poverty rate among Black Americans was dropped about 40%. Mm-hmm. Black people were moving into the middle class. Mm-hmm. In 1970, thousands entered college, thousands upon thousands. And I was one of those. And it was scary. It was invigorating, and it was a relief because we all of a sudden could go out and be a part of this great society. And thousands did. Somewhere in there, somewhere between the thousands of doctors that got their doctorate degree between 1970 and 1980, the thousands of lawyers, somewhere in there, something occurred to where that slowed down, where that drive to get educated, that drive to get out of poverty, that drive to grab the American dream by the throat and choke everything out of it that you could, slowed. And then we got to a point where, well, where we are today.
You don't think that the society as a whole fought against those things, which was part of the catalyst, like drugs in the community or redlining, which significantly slowed down, I would argue, redlining would significantly slow down Black progress.
And redlining occurred primarily in Democratic cities, the big cities like Chicago, New York, LA, Miami, New Orleans. Let's go back to the big cities. We're all run by Democrats.
Yeah, I get that part, but you get what I'm saying, that it's still.
And we vote for those people, though, Larry. We continually vote for those people. We put them in office, and they're the ones that redlined. They're the ones that blocked the school doors. They're the ones that created the war on poverty and this holier than thou. We have to have welfare in order to get people out of poverty. When nothing's changed since the LBJ started the war on poverty. The only thing that's happened is got worse.
I think the political position.
We're still complaining about poverty. We've spent trillions and trillions of dollars complaining about poverty, complaining about trying to help, and it doesn't. And similar things that have come about that is just nutty to me is that at one point in time, and I'm so happy it's gone now, but you will remember that one entire school district in Oakland, California tried to fight to make Ebonics a part of their curriculum in school.
Yeah, I get it. I get where you're coming. I get where you're coming from. I want you to hear me out. So
okay.
let me broaden the perspective here on this. I understand that Democrats may have stimulated a lot of negativity in our community, but we both understand that the Democratic parties and how people support policies and things shift and change throughout time. In other words, whereas the Democrats may have been a part of the catalyst of instituting destructive mechanisms in society, it doesn't mean that the current political party is still part of that same type of destruction, had that same type of promotes those same type of destructive mechanisms. Like, you would agree on that, right? Like the political parties shift and change. Has shifted and changed. The landscape of the political parties have shifted and changed over time, which they naturally should, right?
Yes, they should. They should.
So just because it comes from one political party does not mean that that's the current standing of the political party, right?
Exactly. But they're still pushing things. They still push things in ideology and methods that are harmful. Let's take, for instance, DEI.
Right.
That's a critical race theory, the 1619 Project, all things that are meant to confuse, that are meant to really, when I look at what they've done, I don't understand their process. You can't create equity. It's impossible.
You can create access through, you can create access though, and access stimulates equity. You know what I mean by that?
Nope.
In other words, you can say it's law for me to sit in a room with peers that are just as capable that it is. You can if you force me into a room where I'm just as competitive as my peers, but maybe there is a stop point because of nepotism. Let's call it nepotism. Let's not even call it racism. Let's just call it
Sure.
nepotism, where
Sure.
sometimes you want to see more of yourself in the environment, and you have a hard time relating to somebody who may have dreads or look a certain way, and there's a certain look that gets you into an environment. Let remove the racism stamp. Let's just talk
I
about
got you.
things that are sociologically
Sure.
true, right? We all have implicit bias.
Yeah, I agree with you
Yeah.
on it. Back in the
Okay.
60s, white boys with long hair were ostracized.
Right.
I mean, if you came out with long hair and wore baggy clothes, you were hippie, yippy dippy, and yeah, they were ostracized from mainstream society.
Right. So there's a certain look, and even someone argue a certain skin color that gets you access to certain points there. And so things like DEI force the conversation of forcing individuals who are just as talented to sit in spaces and compete and sit in the same spaces. Now it maybe it's not a perfect system, but I can understand the motive behind it. Is it that there is a level of access that is not given because
That's
of
like
whatever?
saying I understand the motive behind Mao's Cultural Revolution.
All right, elaborate.
The end
I'm way
result,
above my pay grade.
the outcome. Well, anyway, the means doesn't matter. It's the outcome that matters. How we got there doesn't matter, and it's a Marx deal. I'm missing it,
Yeah.
but no. See, if I walk into that company and I want a job, and I know that company has a certain culture, okay, it has a certain culture, and I walk into that company and I'm looking for a job. I do my homework. How long has it been around? Who's the president? What are the interview people like? What is the company like? What do they make? What do they sell their product to? So when I walk into that company, I already know a lot about them, right? So say they have a certain look. Do I want to go into that company with an entirely different look? Nose ring, dreadlocks, tattoos. I don't wear a suit, but the company wears a suit. And I walk into that office and I said, I am really talented. I know everything you guys do. I can help you. And I want to be a part of your culture. But they look at me and I am nothing like they want to hire because I don't fit. Is that their fault or mine? See, to me, DEI was trying to force them to change their culture to match me rather than me matching the culture of the company that I want to go to work for.
Let's take that same example. Yeah, let's take that same example and skew the variables a little bit so that it looks more realistic. Let's say that I'm a decent dressed guy, African American, and I choose to wear afro. And I'm dressed the way I'm supposed to look. I have a little bit of an afro, but maybe wearing an afro is not cultural look. Maybe they want me to look military style. Cut, you get what I'm saying. And when I go into that interview, there may be a bias towards me wearing an afro right from the gate. Is that fair for them to just have that? For me, that's a little bit of a low key example of something where people may feel like I did meet the standards. I did look the look, but because of my skin tone, they just have more of a preference. My skin tone and my culture and the way I move, they may have more of a preference to someone who is more aligned with their culture or skin tone. It may make them feel more comfortable. Is that not relevant in in space as it relates to why we don't have access? Right.
That is very relevant.
I'm in agreement with you that if you come in with a nose ring, you come in with shorts on to an interview, you probably shouldn't get the job no matter how knowledgeable you are. Like there's no debate on that. Like, I'm not arguing it's the obvious.
Right.
I do think that things like DEI is talking to the individuals who feel like they're qualified and don't know why they're still getting rejected. And the assumption that there's a mass of people who, unfortunately, because we don't meet that nepotistic, which is natural implicit favoritism that happens when you are the owner of a company and you choose to select people who you think are like-minded. Happens in every, it goes under the adage of it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, and that's still
Without a
relevant.
doubt. And
Yeah, that's still
exactly.
relevant. Yeah, so
Yep.
it affects things culturally when we are not are not necessarily culturally aligned with the dominant culture who owns the majority of the companies, and we are trying to get into those systems. You know what I'm saying? It only, what you're talking about for me only makes sense to the entrepreneur. It doesn't make sense to someone who's trying to go into places that are predominantly white owned and trying to figure out how to get through those systems. You get what I'm saying? Like for an entrepreneur, it's like, that don't work. This will work. Like, well,
yeah, I get you.
So yeah, okay, all right. So, but we're on the same page there. So just going back to what we're saying earlier, like if I talk to that one young kid, it's going to be extremely individualistic, self-deterministic. But if I talk to if I'm talking to institutions that govern laws, it may be a little bit more liberal. It's saying that society, for whatever reason, we don't know, and we don't care. My personal opinion, I personally don't care how they got here. How do we change the momentum? Doesn't that sound a little bit more liberal than it does conservative? Or do we still stick with the conservative, pull yourself up by the bootstrap, even though the herd is going in one direction? You go and go with that?
I hear you. And the bootstraps things is I hear it and I understand it, but we all need help. We all need that hand out.
Right.
And along the way, and especially today, people are reaching their hands out. They are reaching their hands out. They're opening up their wallets. They're opening up their business doors. They're opening up their penthouse suites. They're opening up their offices. They're saying, "Come on, we need you. We want you. We're begging for you to come here."
Okay.
But then for some reason, there's still the argument about systemic racism.
Yeah, I
But
don't.
people,
Yeah.
but I mean, tell me a company that doesn't have their doors open today. Tell me a social situation that doesn't have, that's not open today. I mean, there may be some private individual male clubs out there. I don't care about those. I'm talking about on a national basis. And if you look at America today, they're saying, "Come, go with us. Let's make this happen."
I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that.
But we're still complaining, and we're still complaining, we're still crying, and we're still trying to find programs, government programs, and some government programs have been around since I have been, and they have never worked.
Yeah, I agree.
We champion Head Start, and what has Head Start done? We still have an 80-something% dropout rate. We still have 7% of our babies born out of wedlock. We still have all these things that we complained about 50 years ago are still here, even though millions and trillions have been spent to stop it.
Yeah, I agree that if that part I agree with too, is that if something's not working, you should shift and find something that does work. I do, but one thing we may not fully be aligned on is the idea that at some point within a certain progression timeline, like I think for the most part, the masses, there's plenty of opportunity out there. Like if you wanted to make a sustainable living, you could find a sustainable living. Like there are no barriers really. You just find another employer that'll accept it. There's plenty of people looking to hire people. I 100% agree with you. I think that when you talk about the institution of laws that force individuals into other spaces, it's probably more at that level of high competition where I'm just as good as the other individual, but I'm clearly being locked out. I do think that still takes place in society from a corporate level, not a business level. But if I'm operating in corporations and I'm trying to find the right corporation, I think that becomes more of a prevalent conversation. It was one of the conversations I just had with my colleague the other day. because I'm with you. I think that there's plenty of opportunity, but I do also agree that which side with my friend who's a little bit more liberal than I am. I do agree that at a certain level, you need dang near perfect variables in order to enter into these industries, and it's not just about how skilled you are. You have to know the right person. You got to be in the right place at the right time. There are all these other variables, and he was referencing the book Outliers as an example of you can have all these things. You can have you've done your 10,000 hours, but if you are not at the right place at the right time, there's and there is a racial undertone associated with that when you get to a certain level. But aside with that, I wanted to intensely talk about this book. I haven't gotten through your book, but I'm a picture person, like I was telling you, and I you know I love the pictures that I was seeing. Your perspective I respect. There are a lot of things I agree upon, but when you look at your history of self, you can understand why that has validity. And I think that that's would make this an important read. I'm going to continue to read this. I'm going to circle a lot of things to ask questions on, and I want to have a really strong conversation on this book the next time we talk. And
I appreciate that. And the thing about it is, and I wanted to, as I thought about writing the book, what I haven't seen out there, and I'm sincere about this, was a book written by someone, just an ordinary, everyday Joe, who not brilliant. Nothing was given.
Yeah.
A lot of people helped, but just by the grace of God,
yeah,
I got a chance to do a lot of things.
yeah. I see a picture in here. There's a race car. You were doing race car driving at one point. I was like, that right there. I was like, oh, this dude. I said, this is gonna be a good read right here. Sorry, not to show too much of your book. I said this is gonna be a good read because I was like, oh, I didn't know. You definitely have a story to tell, and it makes me more appreciative that you stepped out there on faith and written a book to sort of explain your life and why you think the way you do. A lot of strong Black men, I would say, have your perspective. Especially old school men, old school strong Black men. They have that breadth of perspective that is very similar to yours. So
I wanted to let exactly, and the reason I wrote it, I wanted to say, look, it's hard, yes, but thousands. I was just one of thousands during the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the only and the first and the only and the first in a lot of situations.
Yes,
I'm telling you, a lot of situations where I was walking to an arena of 10,000 people and I'd be the only person of color in the room.
You can see that in some of the photos. I see some photos. I was circling. I said, yeah, he's the only Negro in the crowd. Yes.
And that happened a lot. But not only to me, during that era, there was a lot of us that had to walk into those situations over and over and over and over again at every level in American society. And we did it. And then we weren't triggered. We weren't triggered.
Right.
We didn't run away. Yeah. We stood in there and we fought the fight. And we got our little bit of share of the American dream. I'm no wealthy man. I'm living on a pension and my Social Security, and I've had a great life. I raised 3 wonderful kids. All 3 are college graduates. Matter of fact, all 3 graduates from private schools. So private colleges. I mean, and I'm not bragging about those things. I'm just saying it's doable. It's doable in this country. It's even more doable today. And once we get started on it again, maybe we can talk, our next conversation, we can get a little bit more in depth about the fact that, for instance, we had in Iowa, 3 million people in the whole state, 1% Black. In Des Moines, Iowa, we had 3 at one time Black-owned car dealerships, very successful ones.
Yeah.
Very successful ones. And these guys got together and opened up a grocery store in the community.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't shop the grocery store.
Yeah.
The
That part.
community still, yeah, and one of the car dealerships, because they put so much money into that effort, went broke.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a point where the unity has to surpass ideology. Where when you say you're unified, then how great are you unified? Black man's opened up an insurance company in the hood. He's a State Farm agent. Should you go there? And what I'm afraid of is that a lot of times we don't, because we feel or we resent the fact that if everybody goes and puts their insurance with Junior and he becomes a multimillionaire because of that, builds a great big house and rides around in his Mercedes Benz, we resent it.
Yeah, there's a bit of complexity that comes with why black people who are supposedly supposed to be have a unified objective. I mean, they're definitely, like I said, unified in political don't offer the same unified energy with regards to how to support black businesses. Now, as a business owner and as second generation business owner, I know this all too well. I felt this from my father. No. I actually asked my. I'll say this, and I got to leave on that note. I actually asked. I should put out too many names. I should put out too many names. My father would unashamedly tell. He would unashamedly. I asked my father and my uncle exactly, and they're both prominent businessmen in where I'm from. And I said, do you feel like you've gotten the support that you needed from the black community? They both unanimously said no. I asked them another question. I said, do you feel like more white people have supported you throughout your journey than black folks? And they unanimously, fervently, emotionally, triggeredly said yes to that equation.
Without a doubt. And well, I know you got to go, so we'll cut this short. But I'm telling you, that is a huge problem. And it's like, I was a teacher. I taught school. So when I hear people say, well, they don't have enough people in the school that look like me. I mean, I walked in the schools for the first time and was the only.
Yeah.
And I got the same results from the kids in my classroom that a purple teacher would have gotten.
Right. I got to pause.
I didn't get any more respect. I didn't get any better academic performance. I got the same reaction when I would say, you need to do this. Why is your test scores not good? Why are you not studying? Why are you turning in your papers? They didn't do any better because I walked in the room. As a matter of fact, they started resenting me more because I demanded excellence. I demanded more. I said, you need to do this.
I have a different perspective on it a little bit. I hear what you're saying, but as a child who had a lot of mentors, black and white, I can tell you that seeing your face, and I grew up as one of the only African American men that graduated from, in a predominantly white school, in the northern area. Yeah. So I have the experience. I can tell you there's nothing more grounding than seeing and one of my greatest, I call him my father figure, a second father figure, was one of my elementary school teachers. I won't put his name out there, but he knows who he is. White guy. He's a white guy. But I can tell you, but I was raised in a very predominant black church that had great black presence. And and not only that, but I had great black presence in my high school in particular. And I can tell you that there is nothing more grounding and affirming to my self-esteem and self-efficacy than seeing someone like me in position. And I think that in and of itself, regardless of the responsibilities, is needed. That if I was in a predominantly white school, again, I'm unbiased because one of my mentors is white. But if I had gone through school without seeing that type of representation, I wonder what type of impact it would have had on me with regards to how I look at myself. So I do think that people people do need to be forced in these, especially when they have to deal with a diverse population. That's my personal opinion. But that's not without perspective. Does that make sense? I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not
Yes, it
saying,
does.
okay. So I
Okay.
try to give a little bit of context to it, but
I understand.
yeah. But I'm going to leave on that note there. It seems like I'm leaving on a
Okay.
sour note there, but
Oh, no.
I can tell you, I value so much these conversations and conversations with you, because, like I said, I'm 50-50 split. I'm about 50% with you. Probably more like 75%, truth be told. But
You're probably more like 90% with me.
Probably, I would probably argue.
There's a 10%. There's a 10% thing out there that's really confusing, that really shapes us and causes us to go, what in the world is going on? And so next time, hopefully we can get into some of those.
Yes, sounds cool. I'm way behind on my next thing here, but that's all right. I'm doing that CPT thing. There you go. So we'll talk to you next time. It was a pleasure talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you,
For
Larry.
joining.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
No
You
problem.
bet.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.